Kyle Fleischmann was a 24-year-old man who vanished after a night out in a sports bar in uptown Charlotte, North Carolina on November 9, 2007. He was described as a Caucasian male with brown hair, green eyes, and porcelain veneers on his upper front teeth. He stands at 6 feet and weighed 180 pounds at the time of his disappearance. Kyle was wearing a black short-sleeved t-shirt, a black pea coat, jeans, and black dress shoes at the time of his disappearance. When Kyle arrived at the sports bar in uptown Charlotte, he had gone there with a friend after attending a comedy show with his family earlier in the evening. After having a few drinks at the bar, his friend had to leave, and Kyle remained. Video surveillance shows Kyle getting into an altercation with 2 to 3 men later on, after of which he decided to leave. Kyle forgot his coat and debit card at the bar. This was especially worrisome since the temperature outside was around 30 degrees Fahrenheit, which was around -1 degree Celsius. Later, Kyle was seen walking alone towards a pizza restaurant on another surveillance camera. Kyle had stopped in the pizza place and ordered 2 slices. The cashier said he remembered Kyle that night and he seemed to be drunk. After Kyle left the pizza place, he started making phone calls. A total of 8 phone calls were made between 2:42 a.m. and 3:38 a.m. that night. Kyle was calling his father's business phone, his roommate, his sister, and a friend who departed home earlier that night. The calls were reportedly extremely short as well, lasting around 10 seconds, and didn't seem to be able to ring long enough to allow someone to answer. After this, Kyle was never seen again. He is classified as endangered missing, and authorities believe he is no longer alive. Welcome back to another episode of Weeknight Mysteries. I'm joined here with Eurus. I'm with Eurus right now.
Hi, how are you? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm all good.
We're good to go, right? Let's record another podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the Kyle, and correct me if I'm wrong, Fleischmann.
Yeah.
Kyle Fleischmann's case. We actually had to kind of look how to, pronounce correctly the name. Kyle Fleischmann's case.
What do you think about this case?
This case I wasn't necessarily aware of because this is one of those cases that does not have a Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't think it was brought to my attention previously, because most of the cases that I've done in the past, usually I find them on Wikipedia and then just kind of try to investigate as much as I can. But this one doesn't have it, but I think it definitely deserves it because it's a big case.
Yeah, but how did you learn about this case though? Because this is one of the cases you suggested.
Right, so I suggested this week because I found this case on the, what was that podcast called that we listened to?
True Crime?
No, it was Trace Evidence.
Yeah. Trace
Evidence. It's a great podcast that I listen to for kind of inspiration to do more shows and stuff and to find case ideas. So Trace Evidence is a podcast where this case was actually featured, and I listened to it a little bit. I did a little bit into it and I was hooked. I want to do it. I never talked about it before, so I'm excited to get going.
Perfect.
Shall we dig into the background?
Yeah, let me read the background. So Kyle, he was born to his parents Dick and Barbara Fleischmann. He was the firstborn and has 2 younger siblings, a sister and a brother. His family moved to Charlotte in 2000s for Dick's job in Fidelity Investments. Kyle graduated from Charlotte Catholic High School and later graduated from Elon College in 2006 with a degree in business administration. He was reportedly a friendly, caring, and trusting person. His personality could lift everybody's spirits, and he made friends very easily. When his mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, Kyle told her that they would beat it together. He loved and supported his mother and was always by her side until he disappeared. On the night of November 8, 2007, Kyle, his mother Barbara, his sister Noelle, and his best friend Daniel went to a Dane Cook comedy show to help brighten up his mother. They took a cab since they expected to have some drinks. Around 10 o'clock p.m. after the show, Barbara and Noelle, that's Kyle's mother and sister, went straight back home while Kyle and his best friend Daniel went to a popular bar called the Buckhead Saloon in the downtown Charlotte area.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a interesting kind of a setup because the best friend of the family tagged along to a Dane Cook show. I don't have anything else.
What do you think of Kyle though? He looks like a regular, pretty nice guy, right?
Kyle is very nicely described by his friends. Kyle seems to be how should I put it? Like he has that preppy look, but he looks like that guy who's approachable, and he looks like that guy who's always up to have a good time.
Yeah,
and he's always gonna help you out. He has a very nice face to him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And he has this really nice vibe going on him, right?
I think so. I think he definitely has it, and he's been described as a good guy.
Yeah. So
could I go into some more information what actually happened at the bar?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Later on. So basically, Kyle and Daniel had a few drinks at the Buckhead Saloon, but Daniel had to go to work the next morning, so he decided to leave around 1 a.m. in the morning. He saw that Kyle was still talking to a girl, and Kyle then told Daniel that he was going to stay for a little while longer, as he had made a few new friends at the bar. So Daniel said that Kyle was not intoxicated, or that he was having a good time, but not necessarily super intoxicated when, he left the bar and he left Kyle alone. Video surveillance showed that Kyle was getting into an altercation with 2 or 3 men sometime after, and Kyle left the bar shortly around 2:20 a.m. But he had forgotten his coat and debit card inside of this bar, even though it was 30 degrees outside. Kyle didn't go back inside to get this coat, and we talked about this as a very strange detail.
Yeah.
Because that's like -1 Celsius. And
cold.
It's very cold. We have to wear like really crazy jackets if it's like -3. So -1 to not wear anything but like a shirt.
Definitely freezing.
I don't really understand how he did it, but it maybe can like speak to the amount of alcohol that he had drank at this point, because alcohol will naturally make you warmer. If like when you drink alcohol, you will be warm.
Yeah.
It will make you feel warmer. So maybe it just can be like a testament of how intoxicated he was at that point, potentially. And lastly, I would say that he was seen talking with the same girl that he had been talking with inside of the club, in the bar, and they talked and walked across Fitzgerald Street. It's believed that Kyle was very intoxicated at this point when he left the bar and began walking down the street.
Do you think he followed the girl outside the bar?
I don't really know.
Or were they able to see each other outside as a coincidence?
I think so. I have a question though, because it's been mentioned that he had an altercation with 2 to 3 men. Do you have any more information about this? Is this altercation somehow connected to this girl?
I believe so.
So you think that maybe it could be like a friend or a boyfriend of the girl?
I believe it's a boyfriend, but I'm not entirely sure.
Right, because I didn't find this information, so that's why I'm curious. Okay, so another thing I would like to mention, by the way, apologies, my voice is like going down fast, but we can keep going. I think this is good for like the bar, unless you kind of want to add something to it. It just seemed like the bar itself seems like the kind of Yelp reviews reported on it is that apparently it's like where younger people go and they get like kind of reckless inside. It's kind of that downtown.
Is it the bar?
I think so, because I looked at the location. It's literally in the center of Charlotte. It's like downtown Charlotte.
Later, Kyle was seen on another surveillance camera walking alone towards a pizza restaurant called Fuel Pizza. Kyle had stopped in the pizza place and ordered 2 slices of pizza. It's thought that he had around $6 on him, but this wasn't proven. The cashier at Fuel Pizza said he remembered Kyle that night and said he seemed to be drunk.
So we had another person, witness, claiming that Kyle was drunk that evening.
Yeah. After leaving the pizza place, he was never seen again. He did start making phone calls from 2:42 a.m. until 3:38 a.m. that night. He made a total of 8 phone calls in a very short amount of time. He had tried to call his father's business phone, his roommate, his sister, and Daniel, his best friend, but he didn't leave any voicemails. The calls were extremely short as well, lasting around 10 seconds, and didn't seem to be able to ring long enough to allow someone to answer. What do you think about this?
I was going to ask you the same thing because I don't really understand. I've seen some information online that some people think that maybe Kyle was actually trying to get a ride back home. He was calling for someone to get a ride back home. But 2 things kind of make it unlikely, in my opinion. Number one, that he left a lot of personal belongings back in the bar, his coat and his debit card. And another thing is that he didn't seem to call long enough for people to pick up, especially given the fact that it was late in the night. Was between 2 and 3 a.m. in the morning, which probably, if you're gonna call someone at these hours, you would probably want to call for longer.
Yeah, let it ring longer.
Perfect. See, that's why I think it's unlikely that maybe he tried to call a cab. It's very strange to me. I was even almost considering a possibility where Kyle is actually making these calls in order to kind of act as if he's on the call in order to kind of don't talk to someone, or maybe even avoid further altercations outside. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe he's just ringing a phone, but he's not actually trying to call. He's actually trying to pretend that he's talking with someone. Maybe in order to kind of avoid having to talk to someone outside.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
You know what I mean? But that's just me speculating.
And the next morning, when Daniel woke up and saw Kyle's car that was still in his driveway, he knew that something was wrong. He noticed the missed calls from Kyle and tried calling back, but it went straight to voicemail. Daniel got worried and called Kyle's mother and roommates to see if they knew where he was and to inform them that he never came back from the night before. Daniel called the police to report him as a missing person. Daniel created a Facebook page about Kyle's disappearance, with almost 50,000 people immediately joining the page and sharing Kyle's photo and information. What do you think about this?
Good friend.
Yeah, amazing friend.
A very good friend, and also 50,000 people joining on Facebook. And this is 2007. I believe Facebook was created in 2006. So it's not the Facebook of, modern times.
Yeah.
It's the Facebook of mid 2000s. So it's interesting how everyone kind of joined so quickly on 2007 Facebook. I was a little bit I was curious, but I think we can jump to the investigation portion of our notes, right? So
let's go for it.
I could quickly go over this information for our audience members. So because of the Facebook page, hundreds of people met up to start searching for Kyle. Police investigated the people at the bar that night and talked to the cab driver who had been in the area as well. Kyle's phone pings left a trail from that same Fuel Pizza down North Davidson Street until 4 a.m. when it's believed that his phone died or was shut off. Now, this part of town and this street in particular is said to be extremely dangerous and a violent area. Kyle knew this part of town was dangerous and would never willingly venture to this area. This is what, some articles claim. His phone puts him at the entrance of Cordelia Park, which is notorious for drug and gang activity. The park is roughly 2 miles away from the Buckheat Saloon. This means that he would have had to walk about 30 to 40 minutes in 30-degree weather without a coat, which is pretty insane. And last thing that I would like to mention, that a cab driver had claimed that he saw a young man that night, matching Kyle's description, walking down North Davidson Street around the 1100 block that morning. He thought that it was odd because it was so cold outside and this person wasn't wearing a coat. So I think most likely at that late hour, Kyle would probably be the only person walking down Davidson Street without a coat.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I think, in my opinion, it's pretty safe to say that this guy, this cab driver, actually did witness Kyle.
Yeah.
So we know that he was willingly walking towards Cordelia Park, which is a known drug activity location. It's apparently somehow connected to the infamous MS-13 El Salvadorian street gang that is very popular in United States. So I don't know why he was heading there, but I don't know. Do you want to reflect to any of this information?
Maybe he just wanted to go out for a walk. I mean, the park was just there.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe he he got into an altercation. He left the bar. He wanted to spend some time alone, spend some time before going back in the bar and picking his stuff up. What do you think?
I actually think that same, it's funny because I had the same kind of thought process, because I could kind of relate to myself in this occasion, in this particular situation. For example, if I was at a bar and I had an uncomfortable altercation with multiple people, and then I kind of was drunk and I left the bar, and then after some time, I grabbed some pizza, I sobered up slightly, and I noticed that, I left my coat and my debit card at the bar. I would probably want to maybe put some time on the whole situation, because you don't want to run into those same guys that you had an altercation with at a bar, right? But also at the same time, I just don't see how you would willy-nilly accept the fact that your coat and your debit card that could be used by someone else, most likely, I don't know how it worked back then, but that these items are left there and you're just gonna have a stroll, I would probably realistically would rush back to the bar to collect my items. But I could see how maybe Kyle was willing to just go for a walk in order to potentially avoid those same men that he had an altercation with earlier in the evening.
Yeah, but if you think about it, he went in a pizza place, probably sobered up a little bit, and then could it be sober enough to actually walk in the park, or do you think he's still a bit intoxicated? He feels warm, and he feels like he's still strong enough to go in the park and head back to the bar.
I think maybe you have a good point here. That I think he could be feeling warm because he's drunk. He was severely drunk, and he felt warm.
Yeah, and so he just went for a walk, perhaps.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard to explain why he walked in the direction of Cordelia Park.
Yeah.
But I did look at Cordelia Park right now, like in the Google Maps, how it looks right now, present day. It doesn't look like that bad.
Yeah.
And maybe there's some, underground information that the locals know about it. But from all I found, I didn't even find any issues with Cordelia Park. I think I found one article claiming that there was a shootout in Cordelia Park, but other than that, I didn't really find any information that was a particularly bad area of town. But the multiple articles that we've read all suggest that it was a bad place, a drug-related place. So
especially at nighttime.
So it makes me question how bad was the place, how bad was it in reality? And then obviously I have to question, why was he going towards Cordelia Park? What made him go there?
Could it be a drunk thought process?
It could, but maybe also some sort of overconfidence.
Yeah. Yeah, because when we get drunk, we're actually feeling a bit more courageous and brave now.
Of course, yeah. I from my personal experience, I will say that I definitely feel like more, let's say, less aware of dangers.
Less fearful.
Less fearful when I'm intoxicated. I will usually tend to act in a way where I will take more risky things, and I guess you feel more lax about everything.
Yeah, that's true.
I think we have to move over to the Cadaver Dogs, and I think you have some notes regarding this.
Yes, and I'm gonna start reading it. So the Cadaver Dogs had been given Kyle's scent from the jacket he had left at the bar. The dogs took the handlers down to Fuel Pizza and made a big loop around it on the sidewalk. This led some to believe he thought someone was following him and he wanted to try and lose them. The dogs then continued down North Davidson Street with their handlers. They had to call it quits once they reached the park as it was too dangerous for the dog and handlers at that time.
It's interesting. Remember we were watching the Crime Daily?
Yeah.
With these particular handlers when they describe their experience with this kind of situation. And it was interesting because apparently they used two different dogs.
Yep.
And both of them led in that same direction. Obviously not at the same time, like one after the other, but just because two dogs were used, this kind of gives us a very strong indication that Kyle was actually heading towards Cordelia Park.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I will add that guy, that cab driver, who also saw a man matching Kyle's description without a jacket, I think it's, for me, it's like sold. I really think that was Kyle. And I think that Kyle was voluntarily, for one reason or another,
Down there.
walking towards Cordelia Park in 30-degree weather without a jacket.
Yeah, pretty odd. What do you think about the big loop that the dogs made?
I'm not really sure how to interpret that because, I don't really understand how, like Cadaver Dogs work. But apparently from what we read, it kind of indicates that a person who does that, or like the handler said that when it happens, the person usually is trying to avoid someone as like, trying to kind of circle around the block a little bit, something like that. So who knows,
In your opinion, do you think that Kyle made those phone calls as he was walking in a loop?
Yeah, I think that's a very good observation, and I think that could be possible.
Maybe he was avoiding those three men he had an altercation with and he was walking in a loop trying to call someone from his family or one of his friends.
I think that's a possibility.
So, yeah, the next day, the dogs tracked Kyle's scent past the park and into a construction area about 200 yards away. The handler claimed when they got close to the construction site, she could smell death. The handler said it was a very strong scent of a dead animal, or possibly a human. One of the handlers was approached by a homeless man who reported that he saw a gang member or gang members in the park killed Kyle that night, but he was not sure what happened to the body.
Right. So I just want to add to the first point that you said about the smell of death at the construction site. So from what I understood, on the day one, dog handlers went towards Cordelia Park, but they had to stop because there was a lot of gang members.
Because they did it at nighttime, I believe.
Yeah, potentially. And then the next day, they actually continued their search, and from the Cordelia Park, the dogs then led them towards this construction site.
Yeah.
And there was a smell of a dead...
Really strong scent of dead animal or person.
Or person, right? And interestingly enough, the people who were operating the construction site quickly built over it.
Quickly?
Not necessarily quickly. Okay, so I don't really suspect that because now, for our audience members to understand, now there's a big...
apartment building.
It's not that big, but it's an apartment building built over this area where the stench was smelled.
Yeah.
I don't suspect the construction people.
But they're just doing their daily tasks.
Daily tasks, and maybe there was a sense of, let's get this over with before law enforcement stops our operation and then we lose money.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a sense of, we don't really care if Kyle is actually buried here. We only care of completing this apartment building and then, doing other projects. So maybe it was a sense that, they weren't necessarily involved if Kyle was actually there, but I think from a business perspective,
they're going to lose a lot of money.
They're going to lose money, and it's just not part of their regular operations. So
yeah, that's true.
So that's
a really good point.
Yeah, and lastly, I would say that we still have to talk about the sealed documents in the case and some information. So I would like to add that 2 years after Kyle had disappeared, in the year of 2009, a federal judge ordered a search warrant for the construction site on the 16th and North Davidson Street. The area was searched, but the judge sealed off the documents to the public. It is unknown if they found anything in their search at this time. So I don't think they kind of took down the buildings, because I actually checked on Google Maps.
It's still there?
No, what I'm trying to say is that this search happened in 2009, and I actually checked on Google Earth. By 2009, those buildings were already there, and they never gotten demolished for Kyle. So basically what I'm saying is that the search happened in 2009, but from how I understand this, they didn't really check what's under the buildings.
Oh.
So maybe they checked the parking lot, maybe they went with some dogs, smelled around, but I think they were kind of limited to what they could actually achieve, because they definitely didn't take down the new apartment buildings that were already built over. Because I think it was only a couple of months before the construction was complete after Kyle's disappearance.
That was quick.
It was pretty quick. And also I would like to say that the FBI is also involved in this case as we speak and has since sealed off the case records. This may be due to them finding new evidence or a key witness for that point. There has also been no activity on Kyle's bank account, and his phone was never turned back on after that time. Kyle's father believes that his son was a victim of a random robbery gone wrong. He is still highly active in searching and helping the police and private investigators. So that's pretty much what we have. And it seems to me that if the FBI is involved, then this is potentially could be connected somehow to gang activity. Because when the FBI gets involved, it's usually like, because the case is, it's a big case, or like, some big players are involved. That's my interpretation of why FBI is here. So I think maybe it kind of suggests that law enforcement is also looking at the MS-13 street gang in America for potential, answers.
Yeah. You have a very good point, yeah.
And also, I would like to bring back, what do you think about that homeless man that told one of the dog handlers that they saw Kyle getting killed in the park? Do you think it's credible?
I'm not sure. I do think it's a 50-50 thing.
Yeah.
Right? You don't know if you're going to believe it, because, okay, the taxi driver did witness Kyle going in the same direction. The Cadaver Dogs also found a scent leading to that direction.
The Cordelia Park.
Yeah, the Cordelia Park. So the homeless man potentially witnessed the killing of Kyle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, I think it could be a case. That's the thing. It's strange, right?
It is strange.
And apparently the locals smelled a rotting body.
Oh yeah. Around the construction site.
Yeah.
Apparently that stench was so strong that a resident living nearby, she was called Mary, couldn't open the windows because the stench was so bad, and she apparently called 911 and said that if you're looking for Kyle, you should look here or something, if I remember correctly.
Oh, because I think you have this in the assets, right?
Yes.
Is this the situation where apparently Dick Fleischmann said that a private investigator found a woman who lived near the Cordelia Park and the construction site, and this woman had a possible tip. She said that she smelled something horrible in that area right about the time that Kyle disappeared, and her quote is, "You couldn't even come out and get in your car. She only wants to go by her first name, Mary. It was really, really bad odor. It smelled like something dead. You couldn't open your doors and you couldn't let your windows up because the odor was so dramatic." And then Mary says that she called 911 and mentioned the odor. She also says that the odor left when massive piles of dirt were removed from the construction site. She says that time she called police and left a message saying, if you can find out where they took that dirt, then you might find Kyle's body. That could be a serious connection, that Dick Fleischmann says. I think Kyle was killed in that area. All of a sudden, a week after, Kyle was gone, and she says she'd never smelled that smell before.
Interesting.
And I think it's kind of everything, kind of at least publicly available information. Everything is kind of indicating towards that construction site.
Yeah.
And I think there's something there potentially.
He either died there or he was, I don't know, hidden there.
I think he maybe. Well, it's been suggested that he was killed in Cordelia Park.
And was brought in there, or was he killed in the construction site and left there?
I think it's, everything's possible at this point in this case. We're just trying to kind of uncover as much information as possible at this point. And wouldn't you say that it's a good time to jump?
In the theories?
Or maybe to the pictures.
Yeah.
If we can go through the pictures. And I guess we can react to a couple of pictures. I added these about Kyle. And from these images, Kyle definitely seems like a good guy. Like, he's always smiling, has a really good smile, you know what I mean? Seems like someone who's, a happy-go-lucky guy.
Looks like a handsome, preppy, nice guy.
Yeah, I would say so. Seems like, from all accounts, was a good dude, And his face kind of gives off like a good vibe. And apparently he was someone who was an open person. Like, for example, like an extrovert. At least that's what I kind of...
Yeah, you can see it in his face.
That he's an extrovert?
Yeah. And he's like a very nice person.
Yeah, and in this situation, being an extrovert might lead you to running into the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the 2 CCTV footage images that we have. The very first one that I have, I actually took a screenshot from Crime Watch, and you see the highlighted person? That's actually Kyle Fleischmann while he was in the Buckhead Saloon. And this is him leaving the Buckhead Saloon.
Leaving?
Yeah, leaving.
Oh, so he was only wearing a t-shirt by this time.
And that's actually a good point, because when we look at him, he definitely looked like he's only wearing a t-shirt.
Yeah, but if you look at the man in front of him, it also looks like he was just wearing a shirt.
Yeah. It's interesting. Maybe that guy wasn't leaving.
Yeah.
And then we have another CCTV image of Kyle walking past the street, and you can see that he's wearing a t-shirt, just strolling around.
Just a t-shirt.
And you can see that he's alone in the street, so kind of gives you an idea that the general vicinity didn't have a lot of people there.
Pretty quiet. Yep.
Pretty quiet, right? Another image of Buckhead Saloon. This is the image. I think Buckhead Saloon is no longer there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but for the time being, it was a pretty popular sports bar in downtown Charlotte. Then we have Fuel Pizza. This is an image of Fuel Pizza. Another location that is no longer there.
Yeah.
I think Fuel Pizza in downtown Charlotte has closed down. But, Kyle went in there and ordered 2 slices of pizza.
And then started walking down to Cordelia Park.
Cordelia Park, exactly. And if you could take a look at the below images, I've added a screenshot of Cordelia Park from Google Street View. And I went back in time. Google Street View has that trick where you could, take a look at the street view from previous dates. And I went back all the way I could to Cordelia Park in 2008. And it looks like a pretty... sketchy place. But I would like to say that this is also the time of year when it looks the most sketched out. Because the other street view images don't look that bad. Once those trees are fully... once the leaves come back on those trees.
Springtime.
Yeah, it's just a sketchy time, I guess. And the quality is grainy. But apparently this location has a lot of gang activity.
Okay, from the street images, Google Street Images, it does look a bit shady.
Yeah.
And you could imagine gang members meeting up here.
Definitely.
Right? Yeah, but on the map, it does look like a regular park.
It looks like a regular park, and that's the impression that I got.
Yeah.
I didn't really see the...
It does look shady on winter time, but during the spring it just looks lively.
And it was just strange for me that like a city like Charlotte, which is like a major American city, would have such gang activity like right outside of downtown.
Right in the neighborhood.
I just didn't really comprehend that that's even a
Possibility,
yeah,
right?
that's
Me
even
either.
a thing, right? And then if you would go to the Edgeline Flats, do you see those images?
Yes.
So the first one, we can see that this is how the place looked during the construction. And I think it was mentioned somewhere that the ground was perfect for hiding bodies. Like
Was
that,
it an even ground or is it like a steep hill or something?
I think it was even for the most part, right? I don't see any from what I can see, it looks pretty even. But the ground itself, apparently it was easy to dig into it and hide the body. Because that's, you know...
Were there? Did you notice any kind of ditch or something from the pictures? No, right?
Not really. I think law enforcement kind of went over those ditches as much as they could, but they couldn't find anything, you know. The below image is actually an image that I took from... I don't really recall. This is either 2000... Oh, this is 2007. March... This is March 27... 2007, I believe. And see, this is the Edgeline Flats before they were built. So you see there's like an area, an empty area.
Yeah, an empty space.
Yeah, so this is how the area looked, you know, generally during the situation. You know what I mean? During the whole incident.
Yeah, now it looks like this.
Yeah, now it looks like it's a regular apartment building. Nothing. But it's strange, right? Because there might potentially be like some evidence or potentially even Kyle's remains below those flats.
Buried underneath.
And I guess at this point we will never know that.
Yeah.
And we could also take a look at the map in general, because I took these down just to kind of give a better understanding of like distances.
Yeah.
And this is where, you know, if anyone who would like to look at these images, they could always, you know, find it on our YouTube channel. You could see that the Buckhead Saloon and the Fuel Pizza are actually very close to each other. And then Cordelia Park is around 1.8 miles.
It's farther away.
But it's only 1.8 miles away. It's actually a 30 to 40 minute walk.
Oh, not bad then.
Because if you would look at the very last image that I included, that's actually... I actually did a route on Google Maps, what it would take, how long it would take to walk from Buckhead Saloon, if you would also stop at Fuel Pizza, and then go to Cordelia Park. It's like literally 1.8 miles.
Yeah.
But it's strange, why did he go to Cordelia Park? Why was he going there? I guess this is what we really need to talk about.
Yeah, that's true. Are there any other parks nearby? There must be, right?
Not really.
Oh. So maybe he just wanted to take a walk out in the park. And Cordelia Park was the closest one?
Perhaps, but I still think that he wouldn't have went there on his own accord, because it's a dangerous area.
But when you're intoxicated, you feel like you're a lot stronger and braver. Maybe he thought when he was intoxicated, oh, I could deal with those druggies. I'm just going to take a walk.
Yeah, I'm actually even thinking right now, what are the chances that he was taken to Cordelia Park by someone?
I highly doubt that happened because there was the taxi driver, remember?
Yes.
And the taxi driver saw him walking alone.
That's a good point. So by all accounts, it almost seems like he was voluntarily walking towards the Cordelia Park, which is... I don't know how to even explain that. And I think if you're all up for it, we could jump to the theories.
Of course. Want to check out the first theory?
Can you read them out?
Yeah, so the first theory was Kyle walked into the park and was robbed and killed by gang members. What do you think about this? Because Kyle has this preppy appearance to him. He looks like a guy with money. So I would understand why gang members would actually rob him.
Yeah, and then let's take into account that apparently he had like $6 on him. So he didn't have much. And maybe if an altercation with the gang happened, they soon realized that he didn't have a lot of money, and either they killed him because of that, or Kyle was trying to protect himself and they killed him, during some sort of a physical skirmish.
Yeah, that's true. But I was also thinking about what he was wearing, because apparently he was wearing dress shoes, if you remember correctly. And he has this like rich guy aura in him. He was wearing dress shoes, and probably when he walked in the park, he looked like the kind of guy with like money, and perhaps gang members were like, oh, let's mug him. And maybe in the process of mugging him, he fought back. Perhaps.
Yeah, because he's drunk and he's confident.
Yes. So what if that actually happened and it ended up not great at all?
I think this is probably the most likely outcome from the information that I've found online. I think this is the most plausible thing. What else do we have there?
It's random robbery gone wrong. We already talked about this.
It's pretty much the same as gang activity. Pretty much the same.
Yeah. Kyle disappeared on his own accord.
Now, it was said that he was very close to his mother, and he was willing to help her mother combat the breast cancer. And I think we saw her mother on Crime Watch years after. So I think his mother, hopefully she's all healthy now.
She looks very healthy now.
So I really hope that she's all good. But at that time, I don't think Kyle would have left his mother, who just recently got diagnosed with breast cancer. And think about what he was doing leading up to his disappearance. He actually took his mother out to a Dane Cook show. So
he was trying to cheer her up, right?
Yeah. So I don't think that he would have. I just don't see how he disappeared on his own accord.
Yeah, if he's gonna run away, he left his coat and his debit card in the bar. Why would he do that?
Yeah.
Right?
I just don't see it.
Yeah. Okay, so the other theory that we have here is suicide.
And I will say I still don't see it, but I would probably say it's more likely than the New Life disappearance. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
Because, well, things were apparently going very well in his life. He just got a new job. He bought
An apartment
or something like that. So things were happy. He had a good future. I don't think he, at least we don't know of any
issues,
right? So
that would be the reason to take his life, right?
But you never know.
Yeah,
you never know.
People
who are suicidal, they say that like they sometimes it just happens out of nowhere.
There aren't any warnings, right?
But at the same time, I would say that he was enjoying himself that night and taking his mom out, and I think he had a lot to live for. And I would say it's unlikely.
Okay, how about this one? Smiley face murders.
And was there like a graffiti of a smiley face found nearby?
I don't have any information about it, but if you can recall, for those who didn't know about smiley face murders, it's basically a murder of young men near a body of water, and there was this graffiti of a smiley face nearby. So what do you think? Is there any body of water surrounding that
There's
area?
actually is. On the Cordelia Park, actually, I'm going to show you in 1 second right here. It's Little Sugar Creek, maybe. You see like this area? This is the entrance of Cordelia Park.
Yeah.
And this is the body of water. It's very small. I don't think you can even drown in it. It's just kind of a puddle, but it's still considered a body of water.
Yeah, so I was looking at Reddit about Kyle's case, and there were a couple of Redditors who commented about it, maybe potentially connected to the smiley face murders because there was a body of water nearby, and Kyle fits the victim profile.
Yeah.
A young man who died somewhere near the body of water. What do you think about this?
I don't think that's likely because Kyle seemed like he already was doing a lot of weird things to begin with.
Yeah.
And I don't think someone just planned out this whole master scheme of waiting until he gets to Cordelia Park. I mean, what are the chances? If Smiley Face Killer is real, and if they are actually killing young men next to bodies of water, I feel like they already pray for people next to those bodies of water, and just to assume that this white guy in his early 20s will show up in Cordelia Park,
wait there,
and just wait for him to show up there. It's just strange. I feel like they would probably commit these crimes closer to like college campuses. So I would say I just really don't see. I don't even think that the Smiley Face Killer is a real thing.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So I don't think so.
Okay, so the last theory that we have was Kyle was cold and he tried to find a warm place to hide for the night, and he died of exposure. What do you think about this one?
And this sounds plausible.
Yeah, I think so too. Maybe he was walking towards Cornelia Park, and as he was walking, or maybe as he was there, he got cold because remember he was only wearing a t-shirt. He tried to find a place to, I don't know, a warm place. And then I was thinking about it earlier that maybe he was walking towards the construction site, found like a ditch, it's warm in there, and then the next day or the following days got buried underneath the sand or dirt.
Yeah. Well, completely, I wouldn't rule it out, and that's a good one because I didn't even think about it. It's almost like that kind of Brian Schaefer-ish moment here where the victim, could potentially run into a construction site. I think it's possible. And, why not, I guess, because he was really, really underdressed, like 30 degrees Fahrenheit, -1 degree Celsius. That's very cold. To be in a t-shirt, it's insane in this weather, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And he's been out there walking for 40 minutes. He must be crazy.
Yeah,
cold.
and maybe once the alcohol started to die down in his system, he started to feel the cold, and he started freezing, and he started looking for a warm place to burrow in for the night, or started calling his family because he didn't have like anything.
Yeah, I could see this happening. I could see it happening. I could see it happening. So I actually would even say that this is just as possible, the way I'm thinking,
as the robbery,
as the random robbery gone wrong. And I think there's no way of telling which is more likely.
Yeah.
But I would probably say that I'm definitely ruling out Smiley Face Killer. I'm ruling out suicide, and I'm ruling out new life. But
definitely new life, no.
Yeah, but I would say the last one that you brought up is a good one. And then the random robbery is also I think, a likely scenario. So overall, I think, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
But from all the information that we gathered, I think this is where we kind of have to
go with.
Yeah. You got anything else to add?
No, but it's very unfortunate indeed. He seems like a very good guy.
Yeah,
with his whole life ahead of him.
And just kudos to Daniel.
Oh yeah. He needs the Best Friend of the Year award.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
Remember Brian Schaefer's best friend, Clint? That's the kind of best friend you don't want to have. And Daniel is the kind of best friend you want to have. Right?
Yeah. That's definitely the situation right there. You definitely want more Daniels in your life than Clints.
Yeah.
You don't want Clints at all.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I think this was a good show. Pretty nice show. At this point, I feel like we are all good to wrap up for this week's podcast.
And let us know what you think, guys. What do you think happened to Kyle?
To Kyle?
Yeah.
And we will we'll see you on the next episode. So stay safe, and
stay warm.
Stay warm, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you will enjoy the rest of your week. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.